Welcome back to Counterpoint. I'm joined by Dr. Lydia Miljan as we analyze the Ontario educational curriculum. How has it changed? She authored a report for the Fraser Institute, and we're happy to dive right in. Thanks again, Dr. Miljan, for being here. Just before commercial break, we were discussing social emotional learning in math. So I've been out of school likewise for several years. I did not know that was a thing. My kids are privately tutored, and this is a whole different thing. So while I appreciate that obviously children learn at different paces, I didn't realize, and in my opinion, that the math curriculum has been hijacked by social emotional learning. So that's new. I don't think it's gonna okay, so here's a good question. Has that improved math scores since this has been implemented 5 years ago?
Yeah, it's difficult to know because the last PISA scores were they were conducted during the pandemic. So overall, I can tell you that that Canadian education scores have been going down, and Canada has the largest decline. We're still in the top 75%, so don't get me wrong. We still have a good education system, but we are starting to lag behind other countries. And it's interesting if you go to, say, the Asian tigers, they're like at the very top. And oddly enough, they're really emphasizing the rote skills, the memorization, the back to basics, where we're saying we want kids to feel comfortable with learning. And I get it. I've sat crying over math problems. My kids sat crying over math problems, but having them reflect on their emotional journey isn't going to get them to learn 7 times 8.
Right, right. Well said. Okay, let's pivot to the science curriculum. You noted there's a shift towards inquiry-based learning, which I think is a good thing, but also culturally responsive pedagogy. How do those changes affect, say, the time spent on core components of curriculums like physics or chemistry or biology?
Yeah, so the culturally responsive learning is where they want to do a lot of things at once. And again, I agree, inquiry-based learning can be good if you have the tools in the first place, right? You've got to understand how an atom or particles work before you can apply it to another session, right? So there still needs to be that kind of fundamental stuff. There's also this cross-curricular idea so that any subject can be embedded with other subjects. And again, this is pretty high level stuff that we're asking kids to do at the K to 12 era. So it's very complicated. It requires a lot more work and effort on the part of the teachers themselves, where they've got to embed culturally responsive, culturally relevant ideas. So the idea is that everyone needs to be included in the feelings about science. And so you've got to design curriculum that includes different cultural aspects, that includes different experiences.
Yeah, that's again, I mean, maybe my face says it all, but I find that ridiculous. I mean, this seems absurd. I mean, physics, we need to build bridges, we need engineers, we need astronauts. I mean, these are concrete principles. I appreciate feelings, I have them, but I don't understand why it's relevant in a science classroom. Okay, shifting gears, social studies. Okay, this is where all the emotional basket really should be. But when we look at social studies and history curricula, which has really been under the lens in the last several years, when we are looking at Canada's history, discussing reconciliation, things like that. But now we see also there are explicit references to like anti-racism, lots of human rights dialogue, and then social justice. Uh, Again, have those components, are they replacing key components of history, of social studies? Has it helped expand the horizons for the student?
So what the curriculum is suggesting is that not only do we include the stories from our Indigenous partners and include Indigenous stories, but it's also preferencing certain ideas over others, right? So it's one thing to encourage, and I get it. Social studies is supposed to be about civics. It's supposed to be about creating new citizens, but they are really emphasizing the social justice aspect of things. And throughout this, and the other part about it is this co-curricular stuff, is that they're throwing in social studies in the science curriculum, so that if you're doing a unit on environmentalism, it's going to be environmental activisms, right? So that you're taking
Right.
that social studies theme of environmentalism with your science stuff of that. So it's really focusing on one side of the story, really encouraging students to be thinking about how they can be so-called good global citizens, as opposed to just learning about the actual history of our society.
Yeah, and again, history is so important. We have a very interesting history here in Canada. All students should know it. We recently celebrated Remembrance Day. A lot of students aren't even aware of what happened in World War I or World War II. I think those are very important things, but also like how Canada was founded and what our constitution shares, etc. We're going to pick up this discussion in just a few moments.